The decider can make a good all or nothing decision if she knows the extra cost incurred and the extra revenue generated if the firm makes the decision. Economists often say incremental rather than extra. The extra cost is the incremental cost, and the extra revenue is the incremental revenue. Now, these numbers might be negative. For example, if you decide to cease producing a product, the extra cost that the firm incurs will be negative, but also the extra revenue the firm incurs will be negative because it has fewer employees and less sales. The logic of what we're going to talk about from here on doesn't matter whether it's positive or negative. The analysis is identical. The way you decide, the way a decider could use this information to make a good decision is to compare the magnitude of the extra revenue with the magnitude of the extra cost. Undertake an all or nothing activity only when the extra revenue exceeds the extra cost. The logic is simple. Profit increases when the extra profit created by a decision is greater than zero, and profit decreases when the extra profit is negative. Since profit is the difference between total revenue and total cost, extra profit is the difference between the extra revenue and the extra cost. This means the extra profit is greater than zero if and only if the extra revenue is greater than the extra cost, and that extra profit is negative if and only if the extra revenue is less than extra cost. This guide has two important implications. The first important implication is that the decider should avoid the sunk cost fallacy. The second implication is that the decider should avoid the hidden cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy occurs when the decider considers a fixed or sunk cost when making the decision. Costs that do not vary with the decision are irrelevant to the decision. An example of the sunk cost fallacy is continuing a project because the firm has already spent a large amount of money on the project. The relevant costs at that point are the extra costs the firm would incur if it continues the project, not what it has already paid. Another example of the sunk cost fallacy is considering a charge for depreciation of assets. If depreciation does not change, it is irrelevant. The hidden cost fallacy occurs when the decider fails to consider all of the extra cost or revenue that the decision would create. One example of the hidden cost fallacy in the book is switching to a cheaper coal without considering that the firm must buy more natural gas to replace the lost BTU. Another example in the book is failure to consider or to measure accurately risk. A third example of the hidden cost fallacy is to decide whether to introduce a new product without considering how the introduction will affect profits for other products sold by the firm. A fourth example is failing to consider the implicit cost of capital, time, and assets. Hurdle rates and EVA attempt to make explicit the implicit cost of capital. One reason that deciders often fall prey to the sunk cost fallacy is reliance on data supplied by accountants. Accounting data may not be an accurate guide for making good decisions because accountants focus on historical and explicit cost. The relevant costs and revenues are in the future and include both implicit cost and explicit cost. Another reason that reliance on data supplied by accountants may not be a good guide for a good decision is that accountants focus on average cost and revenues. The relevant costs and revenues are incremental. A simple example illustrates that the data supplied by accountants may not be an accurate guide for making a good decision. Suppose that you are choosing between buying two otherwise similar franchise opportunities. Franchise A, where the net income to the firm would be $60,000 and you would work 40 hours per week, or franchise B, where the net income is $61,000 and you would work 60 hours per week. The firm would be a proprietorship and you would not pay yourself a salary. Accountants and the IRS agree that profit is higher for franchise B. However, and assuming 50 work weeks per year, The best choice for anyone who values the extra 1,000 hours worked at more than $1 per hour prefers franchise A. We're going to talk about 3 examples, or we're going to walk through three applications. When you're negotiating over price, the lowest acceptable price is the average avoidable expense. When you're deciding whether to shut down a firm or division, the break-even price is the average variable cost. And when you're deciding whether or not to enter or leave a market, the break-even price is the average total cost.